When it comes to things John Mayer fans are looking forward to in 2025, new music from John with the hopes of a new album on the way is at the top of the list. And on Friday, February 28th, John posted a photo to his Instagram story of him in the studio, and the amp rig that he was using is definitely not what you would expect John to be using to get his quintessential John Mayer tones. This shot here is absolutely crazy, this tower of amps, and in the video, of course, we're going to be breaking down what John is using, as well as kind of a theory I have as to what might actually be going on, but let's just dive right on into it. All right, so starting off at the very top of the amp tower, we have a Supro combo amplifier, it looks like. Now, I'm not super versed in Supro amps at all. I've tried to do some research on what this possibly could be. If you know a bit more about these amps, let us all know what you think it is in the comments down below. Now, in terms of the actual amps that they produce right now, the Montauk seems to be the most likely option, and it's based on a couple things, but I don't actually think it's this amplifier. The Montauk lines up in terms of the square cab shape and the bolt pattern in the grill cloth, but the actual grill, or like the actual cloth of the amplifier, because they're not like Tolix, they're like cloth, I think is what Super actually uses, looks to be blue for the Montauk, where the amp that John is using, I think, is gray, at least based on the lighting is what it looks like, so I don't think it actually is the Montauk. But what I think it actually might be is the Comet, which unfortunately is an amplifier that Supro actually doesn't make anymore. But basically, it says the Supro 1610 Comet is a high-gain, low-wattage 1x10 combo with reverb, tremolo, and switchable power, designed to act as a go-anywhere companion to your favorite guitars. This lightweight tube amp cranks out 6 watts or 14 watts of screaming hot vintage tone with an onboard option to drench your sound in tube-driven reverb and tremolo. The Comet is your desert island tube amplifier. Now, like I said, this amp is actually discontinued, so you can't get it anymore. I'm just kind of in their legacy section here on Supro, and you can find like an old kind of like database, I guess, in Sweetwater. Like they keep cataloged of all the products they don't sell anymore, but they used to. Seems like a likely option just based on the actual color of the cloth on the exterior, like for the shell of the cab. That's what I'm leaning towards it being. Like I said, though, I'm not versed in Supro amps at all, so either way, kind of a weird choice for John to be using. If you guys can make a connection between Supro amps and John, maybe through some of his influences, also let us know in the comments down below, because this is one where I'm kind of like, okay, I've never paid that much attention to these amps, to be honest, so it's a little bit lost on me why John would actually choose to use one of these in the studio. Now, the next amp is one we've seen John using just so much lately. It's the Silverface 50-watt Dumble Overdrive Special. This amplifier John was using with Dead & Company, really, I believe, since 2019. He started first using it with Dead & Company, just based off my memory. Also, throughout the entire John Mayer solo tour. It really seems to be John's favorite Dumble, at least right now, just because it's the one he's been using, in all honesty, the most lately. So no surprise to see this amplifier in the studio. And the shot is decent enough too, where you can actually get a look at some of his settings for the Dumble, which you don't always get. It's not that common to actually see the settings up close. So kind of something interesting too about this photo, that you can actually kind of see those settings a little bit better. Now, the next amplifier is a Soldano SLO100, which isn't totally out of left field to see John using, especially in the studio, and especially also in the context of the caption of this photo that John had posted, which we're going to discuss once we go through all of the amplifiers. But we first saw John using an SLO100 actually back in the Battle Study studio sessions. John was using a Burgundy Tolix one. He at least had it with him. There's a bunch of different amplifiers in a room, and in one shot we have, you see an SLO100 on top of an Alessandro cabinet, and then you'd actually see John using that amp live when he hosted the Late Late Show with Ed Sheeran performing Don't. So that's kind of the only kind of first context we ever saw John using an SLO100 really live. And then for Last Train Home, John used an SLO100 for the actual lead parts and the solo of that track too, with the CE2. So to see an SLO100 coming back out in the studio, it's something we've seen a couple times in the past, so not a total surprise. One thing to note about the SLO100 here, especially because we get such a good look at this one here, this is a modern SLO100. You can tell because of the amount of knobs on it. On the very far left side of the amplifier, the depth knob indicates that it is a modern amp, at least from what I know of SLO100s. for fun, when Last Train Home came out, I kind of was doing a little bit more research and kind of trying to learn a little bit more about these amplifiers, especially kind of their history. So the depth knob is, from what I know at least, indicates that this is a modern version, not a vintage one. A lot of the ones from the 90s, for example, that you see don't have that knob. So that's what I'm basing it on, that this is a modern version. And the last thing I'll say about this specific SLO 100 is that the one that John used for Last Train Home and that you saw in the music video was one with snakeskin Tolix around it. So we've seen him with a burgundy Tolix one and then one with a snakeskin Tolix. Now, there was a rumor that John was using one of the SRV custom SLO 100s. There's like a very limited run of them. I think they made like 10 or something like that. We've never seen John with one of those because they're tweed enclosured. So never seen John with an SRV SLO 100, but now we've seen him with 3 distinct different ones, which is just kind of cool that he's obviously had a few around with them. Now just this black Tolix one being the latest edition. Now the very last amplifier on the bottom is John's Marshall JTM 45 Mark II. I actually have planned a history of John Mayer and Marshall amplifier video coming out in the nearish future, you know, kind of same thing like John when he says he has an album coming out in the nearish future. So sometime in 2025, same thing. Sometime this year there'll be a John Mayer Marshall kind of mini documentary that I'm going to make. This amplifier is really, really cool. I'm not going to dive into it too much in this specific video because of that Marshall video that I'll have coming out sometime, like I said, in the near future. But one of kind of the cooler times we saw John with this amplifier was in the studio on March 10th of 2018. He posted to his Instagram saying he pulled out the Marshall JTM 45 Mark II Plexi today, just like Jimmy used to play. There aren't many of these still standing. I don't expect an overwhelming number of likes on this, but the ones that I get are going to be valued at 2.4 times because this is as badass as it gets. And this could have been like one of the earlier Sob Rock sessions, perhaps, because it looks like there is a J mod to the left side and then possibly the 2 Rock Mayer signature on the other side of the amplifier, I guess the left side of the amplifier. J mod would be on the right side of the amplifier, or a Dumble, but that's kind of what it appears to be there, John in the studio, recording maybe some early tracks or something like that. But it's a pretty cool amplifier. We've seen John use it all the way back since 2005, 2004, kind of early John Mayer trio days, transitioning from heavier things into the trios when the JTM 45 first kind of got into John's hands. He saw some light use, like in Continuum, even, like I said. We'll save that for the actual Marshall documentary that I'm going to be making sometime in the near future. All right, now the thing about this photo that John posted that I want to discuss is that there's going to be 2 possibilities here as to what is going on. The one that all of us kind of want to be true is that John is working on that new album that we've, you know, kind of, there's been rumored. He's mentioned we're going to be hearing new music from him. So he's just rocking out on a track and maybe going for a little bit of a different vibe, especially because now he's an independent. He's left Columbia, so he kind of has a bit more freedom, obviously, with what he wants to do. But the caption saying, "can rock when called upon," maybe this is me reading a little bit more into it, but it almost sounds like if he's being called on to rock out on a track, who would be doing the calling? Is he calling himself to rock out on a track, or is someone else calling him to rock out on a track, being like, "Hey John, can you play some kind of more classic rock tones maybe or something, but we want it to be you doing it. Can you kind of channel some, you know, whatever kind of tones, maybe some more kind of classic Hendrix tones or something, who knows, some more old school like Clapton tones maybe." Could be possible that this is what it is, and it's just for a guest appearance, not actually something that John is doing for his own music. I obviously would prefer it to be his own music, but it's very likely as well that it could just be for a guest appearance on something that we'll hopefully hear pretty soon. Also, the caption is just what's throwing me off a little bit, but maybe he's just saying that like he wants to channel that kind of sound, and he's like, I can definitely do it when I kind of feel like it's required for a song that I've written. But that's just me trying to read into things a little bit here with the caption, and I feel like John always is very intentional with what he says, especially when it comes to gear, because he knows all of us dissect it and, you know, obsessed over the gear kind of stuff that he's into too. So if I kind of sometimes read it a little bit into it too much, well, that's just because, you know, I feel like John kind of knows what he's doing. But I've just had a ton of messages from you guys wanting me to talk about or asking me, what is John using? What is this for? So I definitely want to make a quick video and go over everything for you guys. Like I said, the one that's the hardest to kind of pinpoint is that Supro. I've never really had that much of a reason to dive into or been that curious about Supro amps before. I'm still not. John's just using it possibly just for one track, if it even makes it on, if it's his own music. You never know, right? Like, it's there, but what, context, how much use it's getting is very hard to tell. So you guys don't go out and run and buy a Supro based off of, me making this video and this photo that John's posted, but just curious. This kind of seems like an interesting choice. Like I said, if one of you guys knows a little bit more than I do and can educate not only me, but other people on the amplifiers, like I said, maybe some of the context as to why John is using it, or what also model you think this could be, let us know in the comments down below, because the vintage ones that I try to research, the bolt pattern and the actual square kind of cab enclosure, I never got to line up with the vintage ones that I was kind of seeing were the most common, at least. So that's why I kind of think it could be the Comet, but who knows? Anyways, you guys, I hope you enjoyed this quick little breakdown of these amps that John posted to his story. Until the next one, you guys, take care, and I'll see you on the next John Mayer Gear breakdown video.
Anyway, go ahead and click the subscribe button if you like what you see.